Waiting for that 10-second mark so I know that it's not going to cut off the beginning, and there we go. Hello, everyone. I am Nathan B. Butler. Welcome to the Battlefront Livestream podcast, as I call it. Haven't done one of these since probably April. Again, Battlefront Livestream podcast because it is a Battlefront livestream, in this case for Battlefront 2. We did start and do about 50 episodes or so with Battlefront 1. Podcast not in the sense that it is a typical audio-only podcast that you would see coming through like an RSS feed, through iTunes and such, but more podcast because it's more about the discussion than it is about the gameplay. So in that sense, it deviates at least a little bit from a typical live stream. Haven't done one of these since April, and I'm doing one now that is probably going to be the last one for now. I'll explain a bit of that as we go along as to why. Hey, Exy. But I'll explain as I go along kind of as to why this is probably the last of these episodes for a while, at least until or unless there is new story content released as a new DLC for the game, or until we have a Battlefront 3 perhaps to look forward to. First, just to kind of let you know what's going on with where you can find me in other projects as I go get the crate here. My Star Wars Timeline Gold, which has its final release here in the next couple of months, can be found at StarWarsFanWorks.com/timeline. It is the most comprehensive Star Wars chronology available anywhere. Not sure who's going to pick up the slack once that is done. Of course, I can be heard with Michael Morris on the Star Wars gaming podcast Cloud City Casino, where we recently talked about the Solo update quite a bit. Over at StarWarsReport.com. Also alongside that at StarWarsReport.com is Star Wars Beyond the Films, which I host with Mark Herleman, Star Wars books and comics and other discussion. But recently we've had two episodes, one based on listener feedback and one based on our own impressions on the issue of fandom toxicity. I think the most recent, not the most recent episode, but the one right before that, our first one talking about fandom toxicity, may be the most important, so to speak, relevant, discussion that I've ever had on any of the podcasts that I've been on, and I've been podcasting since 2002, since Chrono Radio days. So something to check out if you haven't checked it out yet, if you're concerned about the state of Star Wars fandom. Of course, my book, A Saga on Home Video, A Fan's Guide to U.S. Star Wars Home Video Releases, can be found on Amazon and elsewhere. A second edition is in the works for 2019 or 2020. Okay, so just getting in here. It's been a while since I've jumped in here, and wanted to show you here sort of some of the changes to it, some of the new updates, and give you the rationale for why I'm probably not going to be streaming much of this going forward. Hey, Veda. And in the process, also jump into Extraction, because it is my favorite mode, one of my favorite modes from the original game, that we'll be able to jump back into here briefly. But don't plan on it being a particularly long stream, because it's more of a downer than it is an uplift. XZ, to answer your question, why do I think some people were upset by the Luke arc? I think it's because it's not the Luke that they expected. They wanted Luke to be sort of that transcendent, heroic, almost godlike figure that he is within Legends continuity, where it's all sort of he's the positive one, leading them through the darkness, as opposed to a more human approach of the idea that, you know, a failure could actually crush this man and make him almost Yoda-like or Obi-Wan-like in being wary of passing on his teachings in a way that could wind up being used for evil, because just as Obi-Wan failed Vader, he failed, essentially, at least in his mind, he failed Kylo Ren, right? But I think it's such a different arc, and it was so unexpected, and people had built up this idea that, well, Luke, of course, is going to be very much like the Luke in Legends, that when Luke turned out to not be the case in Last Jedi, that it angered a lot of people, because this was not the Star Wars that they used to know. I've talked a little bit about it in the more recent episode of Star Wars Beyond the Films, that there's sort of this Star Wars that people know now. Like, there's the current Star Wars of what Star Wars is. There's the what Star Wars was, which is sort of when the official continuity was the Legends continuity, and a very different takes on certain characters. And that while it's okay to like what is, or what was, or both, or neither, that there is a segment of fandom that prefers what it was to what it is, and feels as though their voice is not being heard now, that they are being derided for not liking what is and instead liking what was, and it increases the angst out there. I try to look at this when we did the episodes for Beyond the Films. Again, it's the most recent 2 episodes on StarWarsReport.com for Star Wars Beyond the Films. Tried to look into sort of the psychology of it to some degree as to why people would react the way they are, that this is not people necessarily always just being contrary to be contrary. That there are things that we expect as people and things that are part of just our makeup as people that lead people into certain behavioral patterns when they feel rejected, when they feel neglected, so to speak. In fact, I think the last part of the second episode may be one that will surprise people, because I actually go into sort of the need to have an escape hatch or an ability to either let those who choose to say, I'm done with Star Wars, to be able to either leave or say, you know what, it's okay not to like what I don't like. I still like what I like, and I'm still part of fandom. That there needs to be an understanding. We always talk about, the people who are, in one side or the other need to understand the needs of the other side or understand the viewpoint, and how dare you disagree. Well, that sort of goes both ways, right? That fans on either side of the Disney issue need to be able to be civil to one another and accept that not everyone's going to view things the same way, and yet it's still a fandom that encompasses all of that. Otherwise, you're looking at continued fandom toxicity. Anyway, generational definitely as well. Depending on what Star Wars you grew up with. Certainly there's a different tenor. That goes back to a video I did on the YouTube channel on my vlog. I think it was entitled something like The First Real Star Wars Film Since 1983? Or Since Return of the Jedi? And got into some of those generational differences in perception and why that's a thing. Hey, 5 picoseconds. I am mostly good. It's hot. It's hot and rainy in Georgia, so you walk outside and it's like you just got drenched without actually getting rained on. Just you have to walk through the air as opposed to, like you feel yourself walking through the air. It's kind of, yeah. All right, so anyway, so let me just run through a few things here. So the crystals came back, as you know. On the collection screen, we now, of course, have different appearances and emotes that are now part of victory poses, but mostly appearances. Appearances as of the solo update now have more tiers than they used to. You have common, rare, and epic, but now we also have legendary, which started with Leia's bush disguise, the Tamtel Screech, or the Skiff Guard armor for Lando, and now we have the Landos and the Chewie and the Han from Solo, although the Chewie one is actually considered epic, not legendary. And they're nice, cool looks for the characters. The problem that I've run into is that at this point there is very little to draw me back to the game to continue playing. What drew me back to the multiplayer for a long time had nothing to do with the actual gameplay. It was all about this discussion right here, being able to have that interaction. What drew me into the game with much more interest was the story of the campaign and then the Resurrection DLC. And now here we are where basically interest has fallen broadly, but for me in particular. And the things that would get me to continue playing is a grind to unlock something, right? Grind, you unlock. Grind, you unlock, which is kind of what it was before. Except now it's specific to appearances for the most part. Most of the star cards that I want, I've already got. But it seems to me that they have royally screwed up the numbers when it comes to a lot of the unlocks, relative, in a lot of ways, to the way that they kind of screwed it up originally for unlocking characters and changed it before the official release, way back, when the game first came out. Because you look at this, and 80,000 credits is a lot of grinding. Okay, especially if you want to play the newest mode. Like I haven't played Extraction in probably a week or so. I'm going to jump in and play some here in a second. But my experience playing Extraction was that I was tending to get about 115 credits per match. But maybe I was just on crappy teams repeatedly, but really terrible credit scores. Not talking about credit scores as an Experian, which would make grinding to get to 80,000 or using your daily credits to grind to get 80,000 really kind of a pain in the ass. Particularly when you're trying to get it over and over again because you got your 2 Han appearances for 80,000. You go to Lando and you've got Lando's Skiff appearance for 40,000, and then that wasn't legendary. Skiff was 40,000, but then you've got your other 2 here from Solo that are 80,000. Hey, JL. You go to Chewie and you've got one that at least is epic but is not legendary. For the Vandor heist, you've got Leia's new one. That's the other one that's the 80K, as I recall, unless they've changed it. Yeah, the 80K. And it's just, it's one of those things where, to me, I don't want to grind it. I'm not going to play the game enough to constantly grind to reach a number like that over and over again. If I'm going to play, I'm going to jump in and play a little bit. Maybe it's a new mode that I'm going to play. Maybe it's like a limited time event that I'm going to play. It's not going to be something where I jump in and spend a lot of time just grinding the living hell out of it. So for the newest costumes, pretty much all, or almost all of the new costumes being 80,000 credits each, or 40,000 for the others that are epic, and knowing that when the Clone Wars content comes out, that they've already said you're going to have to pay to unlock all these new characters as well, so save up your credits. To me, the grind isn't worth the reward. The time sink isn't worth it. If you're going to get somebody like me who's kind of bored with the game to get back into it and continue playing without new story content, you're going to have some type of reward, so to speak, that comes earlier than waiting until you grind out the 80,000. And then, yeah, and as Dude in the Basement is saying here, the other option, and this is what blew my mind when I actually did the conversion, is the price. You could unlock it with crystals. Sure. And in fact, that was a big deal, and actually a very good thing that they did in saying that, you know what, we're going to bring crystals back, microtransactions are back, but don't worry, you're going to be able to do this only for cosmetic things. It will not affect gameplay like it did originally. It didn't affect progression. It doesn't affect progression now. It did affect progression originally. But you do the actual conversion and take a look. Your choice here is grinding and grinding and grinding and grinding to get, say, this bush costume, or 2,000 crystals. Well, 80,000 versus 2,000? That's not bad at all. That's a steal. Until you realize that 2,000 crystals is $20 for a character skin. Hell no. So, if you wanted me to spend real money to get something, you've priced it outside of the range that I would find acceptable. If you wanted to make it a grind for credits, you've done the same thing. Which to me means that other than getting a few more star cards that I didn't really want, otherwise I would have got them already, there really is no incentive to grind the game. And gameplay would be in very small doses. Well, this is a game I bought digitally. It's taking up a massive amount of hard drive space on my PS4 Pro in here. Now, thankfully, we've got another PS4 Pro because when that one died and I sent it off, I didn't know if it would actually be repaired. I had some extra money from teaching extra students that came in right at the time that happened. We replaced it. And then it wound up being able to be fixed under warranty. So we've got a Pro in the other room too. But it's not in a place that's close enough to the connection to be able to be good for streaming. I'm cool with deleting it off of this hard drive, putting it on the other one, and using that to at least stay up to date on Battlefront content so that I can talk intelligently about it on Cloud City Casino, on Star Wars Beyond the Films. But that makes it so that streaming is less likely. But I've got a lot of things I'm trying to play through. Skyrim VR, Detroit Become Human, all these things that I'm having to constantly manage my hard drive space for when it's a pretty decent sized hard drive as it is. This is one of the things that I would like to be able to just shift to the other room. But in doing so, it does mean probably an end to the live streams, at least for this game, until there's something else. So once the Respawn game comes out, sure. Once we get to a point where there's a Battlefront 3, sure. But for Battlefront 2, I don't think you'll be seeing much beyond this. And I know Twitch TV because I want to keep everything unified. That's why I keep it going through YouTube. So anyway, we did get, just wanted to kind of explain why this is probably the last episode you'll see of Battlefront 2 content, perhaps ever, perhaps for a while. That's why it says the final episode ? But I don't expect much more Battlefront streaming. I expect more to come whenever we have like the Respawn game coming or something like that. Or more PlayStation VR stuff, but not necessarily this. So we did get a new Millennium Falcon, which of course you had to pay to unlock as well. Though it was much less than paying to unlock any of the costumes, which is asinine. Haven't really played it at all yet. But Lando's Falcon that has now the coaxium injection, which is cool. Gives you a speed boost, as many of them do. Synchronized fire, which allows the top and bottom cannons to fire at the same time. And being able to not only tag targets, but also tag them so that they receive increased damage, not just from you, but from friendlies, through the L337 co-pilot there. The L3! Let go of the mean man's controller. Hello, Aaron. So, we did get some new things. on top of having gotten Iden's TIE Fighter a while back and that sort of thing. But again, to me, if the bulk of the things they're going to be adding will tend to be repetitive or grindy, or hey, spend $20 on a damn character skin, that's not going to be enough to draw me back in to continue. Even though my favorite type is back. So they've reorganized the multiplayer screen for those who haven't seen it. Arcade is still pretty much the same, but you do have the ability to use other customizations. Like you can have a team battle with Starfighter or Starfighter Onslaught now. It doesn't all have to be like infantry ground-based combat, which is cool. Something I like because the people that I know that love the game, and I really enjoy the game. It's there's nothing new to keep me playing. I played the hell out of it to the point where now it's kind of old news. But a lot of the friends of mine who like to do this, they and their kids play. And I won't be able to do that for a few years. Our baby is not due until September, and he will not be playing video games yet. He wouldn't be able to hold the controller. But eventually I would be playing with Cade, and the thing that we would do is probably play co-op, you know? Like the friends of mine who love the game play with their kids. And having the option to be able to do Starfighter is great because that's one of the things that they were always saying they wish they could do, because the kids didn't like playing the multiplayer Starfighter with the parents. They tended to want to, because it would be on different machines, and it took away from that sort of couch play mentality. The campaign is still pretty much the same. I actually just finished summarizing the whole thing for the Star Wars Timeline Gold. That's why I'm doing the stream now, and why I'm going to then delete it off the hard drive and put it on the other PS4 and just let it go. Because I was able to finally get it summarized for the Star Wars Timeline Gold for its final edition coming up later, StarWarsFanWorks.com/timeline again. But the multiplayer is really what they've focused on reorganizing here. So Heroes vs. Villains now has the regular Heroes vs. Villains and then Hero Showdown that was a fairly recent addition, but not the most recent. That's sort of a 2-on-2 kind of thing. Something that probably makes more sense to do as co-op than to do as random matchmaking, at least in my experience. You're way too reliant on the other player's skill and the other player coordinating with you to make that a random thing. You should really make the point of matchmaking with someone ahead of time and then jump in and actually play. Let's see, how many Liam Neeson was your friend's dad? Well, if your friend ever gets kidnapped, then he or she is in great shape, right? Because then Liam Neeson would go and find them and kill them. How many crystals exactly would people need to unlock Han and the other characters as opposed to characters you get to begin? See, it's been so long. Let me take a look. It's been so long since I started, because I started playing actually before day one because mine arrived a little early. Most of the characters, as I recall, the current characters are all immediately unlocked. You don't have to pay to unlock them anymore. There are some ships you were still having to pay to unlock. I know you have to pay to unlock Lando and L3's Millennium Falcon. I can't recall off the top of my head if you still need to unlock Iden's or Tallies, because I unlocked them so long ago. But if you're just talking about appearances, okay, the appearances. So if you're just talking about the newest stuff, the legendary stuff, right? Not the Endor Han kind of thing, or the Hoth one that I got, because you do that by doing milestones. Just the legendaries. You're looking at 2,000, 2,000, right? And then for Lando, you're looking at 2,000 and 2,000. For Leia, you're looking at 2,000. So you're looking at 5 times 2,000, which is 10,000. And you're like, well, where do I even get crystals from? Well, go to an appearance page, click on R2. There you go. So you're looking at needing 10,000 crystals to get, if you were going to spend crystals instead of grinding, to get those 5 legendary appearances. Ignoring Lando's epic one, ignoring any of the other epics that were from before that, ignoring Chewbacca's newest one, which is epic, as opposed to legendary. You'd be looking at needing 10,000 crystals. So you would have to buy, let's see, you'd buy, if you did it in the most cost-effective way possible, you'd be looking at 40 plus 40 and still needing, what, 1,200? So this or this, 50. So either way, you're looking at about $100 worth of crystals to unlock 5 appearances, not counting trying to get the things that you need to unlock other items. But the other items, for the most part, I don't think these were unlocked by crystals. If I remember correctly, these were just a credits-only kind of thing. If I remember correctly, I didn't really pay much attention because I didn't really care. I wasn't going to buy crystals for it anyway. I still have crystals sitting there from some of the milestones that give you crystals, but they don't give you enough crystals to do a damn thing with, so they're just kind of sitting there. Heck, I still have some crafting parts I haven't converted into skill points because, again, just haven't cared. But yeah, like if you want the new stuff, it's basically pay money or grind way more than you'll probably be playing the game anymore, unless you are so die-hard into the game that nothing would cause you to stop playing, that this is still your primary game, you know, almost a year on or whatever. Anyway, so let's take a look at the mode change. Like I said, so Heroes vs. Villains. Assault has your Galactic Assault, Starfighter Assault, and Strike all lumped together. Yes, Strike is considered Assault, even though I'm not sure I agree with that. And then your Operations now includes Blast, Extraction, and Jetpack Cargo. And Extraction is, you notice Ewok Hunt is now gone. It'll presumably come back. It was around for a while. Extraction is the same mode that we got back, more or less. It's tweaked a little bit for the original game, which is one of my favorite modes in the original game. Unfortunately, it only works on 2 maps. It works on the new Coaxium Mines of Kessel map, which I think is kind of a bland map, but cool looking. Cool looking in its aesthetic, bland in terms of gameplay, put it that way. Or the Jabba's Palace map, which is mostly just lifted from the original game into this one as part of the Season of Han Solo. And yes, it is Season of Han Solo, not Season of Solo. So Season of Han Solo related stuff as opposed to Season of the Solo movie stuff, which is why, as Michael corrected me, why the first Solo season stuff had nothing to do with the Solo movie and were new skins for like Lando and Leia, and then bringing Jabba's Palace in. But let's jump into Extraction. It's been a long time. Like I played Extraction a little bit on the first day, got bored with it after about the 5th match and just stopped, and got tired of only getting some pretty crappy credit payouts that made me realize that if you want to grind to get the new stuff, good effing luck if you're going to try to grind playing the new modes that you want to play because they're new, because their credit payouts are typically going to be less. Really a poor choice there, unless the only point, as Dude in His Basement noted, was specifically to get people to just spend more money, right? Like they need to have Jawas out on the street acting as though they are from Chick-fil-A, right? Eat more chicken, buy more crystals. Let's see, JL, they have corrected that. Lucasfilm has corrected that to say that that is not the case. That they have not stopped with the idea of doing more Star Wars stories. That was a bogus report. A report that started at Collider, but which is usually okay on their provenance of their information. Ah, dang it! Got one. There we go, assisted. I do like the fact that they changed the way that they've done some quality of life improvements to the HUD, so you're able to see like who the assist was with a lot better and stuff like that. That's pretty cool. I said, I mean, it's not that it's a bad game. It's just that it's to the point where I've played it enough that I'm bored with it. And the new stuff that they're adding as sort of the carrot to get you to continue playing is so overpriced, both in terms of grinding time and crystals, that it's not enough to draw me back. Maybe if they balance that out, I'd be playing more. But for right now, I look at, you know, what are the chances of me actually getting those things and caring enough to play enough to unlock all of those things versus, you know, the good of just being able to switch rooms and take this off of my hard drive. And right now, taking off the hard drive is by far the better of the two choices.
Press forward. Still have much ground to cover.
I don't have a forward to press on my... Yeah. Gotta escort it, but you gotta clear the room! Feels to me that Battlefront would have more content in the DLCs. They did, but remember there were paid DLCs too, so they had the financial wherewithal to be able to put time and money into developing those more, whereas now... You know, it's kind of what we expected, right? With it being free seasons, we have the downside that a free season is going to generally mean less content or more reuse of content that already exists as opposed to creating new assets. Ah, shiza! Disney's getting Fox. Well, again, they're not getting Fox. They're not buying the Fox company. They are buying. They have put in an offer that has been accepted for 71 point some odd billion, if you include the way the stocks work, to purchase Fox's entertainment assets. So Fox will still exist as a company. They will primarily be focusing on news programming and some of the other things that News Corp does. And the last they officially announced anything about it, they were going to rebrand a lot of their stuff that they're keeping as New Fox, as opposed to Old Fox. But those entertainment assets would go to Disney. And if they do, then that's a great thing for Star Wars home video people, collectors. Because even though you won't be seeing the 20th Century Fox fanfare on the films anymore, presumably ever, because it wouldn't be owned by Fox anymore, that we would actually now have instead the ability to have like boxed sets that include all of the episodes together, both Disney and pre-Disney. Because until such a purchase can happen, and it hasn't been approved by regulators yet, but it probably will be. The AT&T Time Warner thing got approved the other day, which is a pretty clear sign that more than likely the Disney Fox one will be approved too. But you've got the fact that had that not gone through, or if that does not go through, A New Hope's physical and all other distribution rights are with Fox in perpetuity, whereas the ones for episodes 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6 revert to Lucasfilm for physical distribution in 2020, and they already exist for other distribution with Disney. But this would finally allow all the distribution rights for those to be in one place, leaving the question being, okay, well, at some point, would Warner Brothers sell the rights for Clone Wars back to Lucasfilm? Would we see CBS, if they are the ones who own the rights? I don't think they are, but if CBS owns the rights still to the holiday special, if they're not owned by Lucasfilm already, would that carry over? Like, would they purchase that out from under them? But you're seeing more of a chance for more unified Star Wars home video products, unifying sort of the Lucas era and the post-Lucas era, if this deal gets approved. That's probably the biggest thing for Star Wars fans. And then from the standpoint of Marvel fans, it brings Marvel properties that were licensed out to Fox, like X-Men and Fantastic Four and stuff back under the Marvel banner, so Marvel Studios could actually use them, because at the moment they're licensed out. That still wouldn't necessarily deal with the Spider-Man issue, because that's Sony, but they've made enough of a deal that it seems as though the Spider-Man thing is, at least for now, addressed. Produced by one company, distributed by the other, profit sharing, and Sony Spidey gets to be in Disney Marvel Cinematic Universe, I mean, that's the thing. That's the danger you run into when you license out your properties, and then later you want the properties back. Well, too bad, right? You got to wait until the contract runs out, or you got to actually have a purchase of the assets back, purchase of the rights back. Kind of the same thing right now. It's kind of like the same thing with licensees, right? I mean, if you want, like right now, if you want to get a copy of the comic that I wrote for Star Wars Tales, right now it's only available through current distribution. If it's not sitting somewhere as like a back issue in somebody's comic box or something, you would have to get it digitally through something like Comixology, because the Dark Horse app is no longer allowed to sell it digitally. Dark Horse is no longer allowed to actively sell the physical copies because the license is now with Marvel. That contract is over. Whoever has those rights has the distribution control. And Marvel, apparently, while reproducing a lot of stuff, putting the Legends banner on it, hasn't done that with that particular comic. So... yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it'd be any Fox Entertainment assets. So yeah, they're going to have a ridiculous amount of stuff. It's just that we tend to focus on the Star Wars and Marvel stuff because those are more the geekdom things. But also Firefly, for example. They would have the rights to Firefly. Because if I remember correctly, it's I'm trying to remember if Firefly is distribution rights or all production rights. I think it's just distribution rights that make the difference. Will we finally see an unaltered trilogy in HD? I've answered that a million times before. My answer is that it depends on who's in charge of Lucasfilm. It depends on the resources involved in actually updating them. If Kathleen Kennedy is still in charge and people who are loyal personally to Lucas, despite him not being there, are still in charge, probably not, because they consider that to be a new change. Because they would have to essentially recreate it or reconstruct it. I think there's a better chance of it happening if it's under Disney than if it were under 20th Century Fox. Because if it's under Disney, then they have the profit motive behind it, because they would have the full share of profit from it. They wouldn't have to. It wouldn't be something where there'd have to be a collaboration with 20th Century Fox, and there'd be a profit sharing and you know, cost borne by one side or the other, all that kind of crap. So I think it's more likely once this deal goes through, assuming it gets regulatory approval, but I don't see it as, it's not necessarily a given. It would certainly be nice, though. Who knows, maybe for a 50th anniversary. They sure didn't do jack shit for the 40th. So maybe for the 50th. Maybe when my child is old enough for me to really get him watching Revenge of the Sith, where he's not gonna freak out. Maybe that's when we'll see it. Yeah. This one, I'm hoping that I'll have more credits coming out of this and that it was a fluke, because this match has gone on longer than the ones from when I jumped in and played Extraction the other day. I guess when people were just getting used to the mode, like maybe they didn't play the original game and had no idea how to do it. Because like I said, like I was coming out of it match after match with 115 credits, and that was just not enough to merit grinding through that particular mode. I still don't think it's going to be enough to merit grinding to 80,000 credits over and over again. But it would at least allay some of my thoughts on just how crazy some of the number balancing turned out to be. You can't, that's the thing, you can't use Laserdisc Masters to make high definition releases. That's why the Laserdisc Masters were the ones used, for instance, for the bonus discs back in 2006 and 2008, actually, both. The Laserdisc Masters aren't of a sufficient quality. You would have to scan the material in anew, usually at either, like these days, a lot of times they're scanned in at 2K, but you can scan it up to as much as 8K.
Get that thing moving.
But you have to have an original to scan, and their argument is that those don't exist anymore because of the physical changes made to the original copies. Switch types. Hey, I can be a roadie, why not? Made to the physical copies for the special edition, assuming that, you know, you take that for granted. I don't like this gun, but I realized I had to get more kills with it, so why not?
All are progressing to the
I'm a
extraction.
Rhodian! One of the only other skins I've actually bothered to buy. With credits, of course. I'm not spending any money on crystals. F that. Again, if crystals were a little more... Like, say, well, you just wouldn't spend money on a free-to-play game or a microtransaction game anyway, so that's not a good comparison. I've spent all kinds of cash on games that use microtransactions, mostly app-based ones. Pathfinder Adventures, for instance, or it's Star Wars Uprising. But it's because the price factor relative to the gain was more appropriate, I guess I'd say. Hey, it looks like me, but it's not me. Did I ever sell the Harry Potter set? Actually, I wound up selling it. A friend kind of backed out of it, and I wound up selling it to my sister and brother-in-law. Still, $220. Really? That amount of time spent and 220 credits. Let's do the multiplication. How many times will I need to grind this game mode in order to purchase even one costume? Or even one of these new legendary costumes that were introduced alongside this mode. Let's see, carry the one, a shit ton. A shit ton is exactly how much it is. That's ridiculous. That is not an incentive to continue playing and to grind. The carrot is way too far away. Just doesn't make any sense to me. Sci-Fi and USA getting the rights to Harry Potter movies? Okay. I mean, I that's all NBC Universal, so I guess they would have been the ones to purchase the rights. I don't tend to watch them on TV. We do tend to watch live TV a little bit more now, though. When the Stanley Cup playoffs hit, and we couldn't watch those on the NHL app, which is asinine, because they were nationally televised, which means they are blacked out to watch them live. We got Sling TV now as well. So we got Hulu, we got Netflix, we got NHL TV, or whatever you call it, the NHL app. We've got CBS All Access. We use the free CW app, and now we've got Sling TV's like second tier option, which is just too damn much. But we still get a chance to watch a lot of the stuff that we want to watch. We were able to watch most of the Stanley Cup finals, where my wife was for the Capitals and I was for Vegas. We both like Ovechkin, but the main reason I was for Vegas was because they started playing this year, and this was the first year I started actually caring about hockey, so to me it was kind of a fitting thing to root for Vegas, and then Vegas got their asses kicked. Bad. Except for in, like, the first game. Protect the cargo! Protect the cargo! Oh, shit! Oh, and I overthrew it. It would have been nice if I would have died, and then boom, and it's taken out. So are there any UHD releases for Disney movies like Moana or The Jungle Book? As far as I know, there's still... Like, I don't watch a lot of... And hey, Jacob, by the way. I don't tend to watch a lot of the other Disney stuff. What was it... I'm trying to think whether or not the newest Pirates of the Caribbean had a 4K, but I don't think it did either. So I think there's... It's like the Marvel movies have started to come out in 4K since Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Star Wars, of course, since Last Jedi. But I don't know that I've seen any, like, standard Disney films with 4K releases. At least not that's sticking out in my mind right now. Although, speaking of Disney releases, one of my favorite movies of all time finally has a Blu-ray release thanks to Disney Movie Club, but it's exclusive to Disney Movie Club. Three Musketeers, the one with Kiefer Sutherland and Charlie Sheen, you know, save the king, and all that, you know. This sash was a gift to me from the Queen of America, or whatever. That is finally on friggin' Blu-ray. I was so excited. Like, I was more excited for that than for any of the Star Wars releases. I mean, it's freaking awesome. Okay, so Coco got a release, so I guess they are moving into their animated stuff then. Haven't seen Coco. Haven't bothered to see Coco. NES Classic is returning. Do I plan to pick it up? Nope. Why? Because the vast majority of the games that I would want to play on NES Classic, I already have on Virtual Console on the Wii U in there, either on the Wii U side or on the Wii side, or I have them on my 3DS as a 3D version of the game. So I see no point in it, unless I buy it to hold on to it and eventually resell it, which I think is. It's about as close to scalping as you can get if there's a time frame in between, you know? Probably not the nicest thing to do to fellow fans out there of Nintendo games. I did finally get a Switch, though, recently. So I've been playing Skyrim in VR on PSVR, but also playing Skyrim on Switch. Making different choices to kind of see different paths. And been playing... Super Mario Odyssey. My wife and I both have been playing together with the Mario Kart updated version and the two Street Fighter games, Ultra Street Fighter, and then the 30th anniversary collection we've got on the Switch. Even then, there's still not a lot to draw. Like, it's kind of like, okay, I've got the Switch games that what we want now. Is there anything coming we actually give a crap about? Ugh. Terrible thing about sinus drainage, when you breathe in and a whole bunch of sinus drainage goes right down your throat and makes it hard to, you know, not choke.
Rebel forces have
yeah, 4K Incredibles I've got, but is Incredibles Disney? I don't have it, like, nearby, but is Incredibles Disney? I don't remember. But yeah, that's actually the first time I've ever seen Incredibles. We picked it up on the day it came out on 4K. And watched it. We got it in the other room. Gotcha. Well, that's a different... Yeah, Pixar's kind of a different beast, though. Okay. Kind of looking for... I guess I would say I kind of am. Not enough to grind enough to unlock them, though, because according to the some of the most recent posts at EA, you're going to have to actually pay to unlock Obi-Wan and Grievous and so on, just like you had to for some of the characters early on. So if I'm not going to grind the hell out of the... play enough to grind the hell out of the game, I'm not really going to get much use out of that update either. Let's see. Still trying to work out information on the single episode release of Downfall of a Droid on DVD. Single episode release? I do not recall. But that could just be that that's a different region.
They won't be handing out medals for this battle.
I have seen nothing about them working on 4K Star Wars. At least as far as like 4K originals. Like an actual working process. You would think that'd be everywhere. I've seen nothing about that. My guess would be if it is, it would have to be something that is based on whatever master they used for the Blu-rays, because usually a Blu-ray is still a scaled-down master relative to what the original scan was, the original copy that exists. Okay, gotcha. All right, so oh, okay, so Skytrap, who are you? I think I know, but I don't want to say it wrong, based on the initials behind it. But yeah, I'm not making the connection. But yeah, the I need to finally get into more of the Clone Wars UK stuff, but right now it's all... Like, we've got a... Short version is we have a member of the family who is near indigent. Hasn't worked in a while, aside from small side job type things. Kind of lives off of the kindness of others in a lot of ways. And we sort of took on paying his medical expenses and some other things and allowing him to purchase things using credit cards that we had or that my wife had for basic necessities that wound up not then getting paid and wound up building faster than realized. So now the extra cash I have coming in this summer from teaching extra students last semester and teaching summer school, a lot of that is going, right now it's going toward either baby stuff or it's going toward paying off those credit card bills. Like we just paid off one that was like $1,700 to friggin' Target, for example, a lot of which was interest. So I would love to be able to get back into purchasing. Okay, yeah, that's what so I would love to be able to get back into grabbing more of the UK Clone Wars stuff, especially when they did the not single episode releases, but like the little volumes that combined to form a season prior to the season sets. But I just haven't wanted to set the money aside for it yet. I've been kind of waiting and trying to bide my time as much as I can, just until we know, how much the pay is going to be and how many of these credit card bills we're going to be able to take care of. I think we got the medical bills mostly under control now, but it's been one of those things where she keeps saying, well, you're doing this work, you're spending this extra time, it's your effort. This is, in a lot of ways, while it's our money, it's your money. She thinks of it as mine and hers money a lot of times because I'm bringing in more, I guess, and she's thinking of it as somehow that entitles me more to it than us as a family, which I don't see, but that's how I grew up. You just don't look at it that way. That she's like, well, it's your money, use it for something for you, and I'll do something small, like I'll pick up, like I'm gonna get this 4K movie over here, I'm gonna put in this pre-order for this thing, but I'm not gonna spend out the wazoo and really hammer away at a new section of collecting until I know for sure that all the other stuff is taken care of. It's the boring side of adulthood, I guess. Have I caught up on The Flash and Gotham? Yes. Do I prefer the special editions of Harry Potter to the theatrical editions? I couldn't tell you the differences because I don't even know which ones I've seen. I don't pay that much attention. Season 1, Volume 2. So yeah, because isn't it like 4 volumes per season, and they did it for the first... Was it the first 2 seasons they did it for? I don't know. Somebody clarified it for me at one point, and I wrote it down, but I don't have it fresh in mind. I have been getting some more work done on the new edition of the book, though. I got all the pictures taken of the definitive collection from the US, the Laserdisc set, the 2 definitive collection versions, and the collector's set from the same era from Japan, the definitive collection VHS executor set, and all the THX remastered ones. I got all of those finally with new pictures taken of them, so I could update chapters 3 and 4. So I'm updated pretty much through the end of chapter... picture taking wise through the end of chapter 3 or 4. From the standpoint of inserting pictures, a little bit less. But I had to spend a lot of time changing the file size, because it just wound up that the pictures I was using, even though I was cropping them, I wasn't changing the resolution and the size, so they were adding too much to the file size of the doc file. So I've got it so that now as I'm adding pictures, if I take out one of the original black and white pictures, or grayscale, add in a color picture that's scaled the way that I'm scaling it now at 300 resolution and a maximum dimension of 5 inches width, which is basically the width of the page, minus the margins, it's winding up giving me something that keeps about the same file size as those original larger grayscale images. So now that I fixed that and reinserted all of the pictures, all 100 or so that I'd already redone, I'm hitting them a little bit more as I go. Haven't really written any new content yet, but I'm trying to make sure that all the pictures are sound before I do that. Like, I'm looking forward to writing the new sections for, like, Last Jedi and Solo and that kind of thing. I just haven't had the time to do it. Do I watch Supernatural? I do not. Only thing, and in fact, the only thing I think I've ever seen one of the Supernatural guys in was back when he was playing Lana's boyfriend one season on Smallville. Still, I think the greatest comic book TV series ever.
Keep moving.
Has Disney's Frozen become an internet meme?
Enemy forces
guess.
have control of the payload.
I mean, most anything pop culturally now tends to. I've seen plenty of things with it, but not as common as many other memes that I see. Steal that shit! Steal it! No, you gotta steal it from the other side! No, it's already moving! Just run! Just run! Well, Smallville got a continuation in the comics that actually was pretty good, that took them through quite a bit. After the end of season, what was it, 10, I guess, the last one? And, you know, we got a chance to see, like, the Smallville actors and actresses recently, right? Because, you know, Erica Durant's playing the new updated version of Supergirl's mama on Supergirl, and then, of course, Tom Welling in Lucifer playing Kane. So worry about the future of Star Wars after Solo? No. No. Still a massive moneymaker. They just marketed it poorly. I don't see that as a huge thing. Cool. By the way, this will probably be the last of the matches. I'm starting to feel a little meh because I haven't eaten.
Got your back.
Cause I got you back. I know, it's not actually what the words say, but still. That's what popped to my brain. I can't see you, but I see the little marker over your head. Ah, okay, gotcha. Interesting. And no, I have not. Well, I've seen Jurassic World. I haven't seen Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. I won't see that until it's on home video. I've never been a... After the first Jurassic Park, which was good, but a huge disappointment relative to the novel, I've not been a big fan of... I wasn't a big fan of Lost World. I wasn't a big fan of Jurassic Park 3. I thought Lost World was pretty good, but, you know, not enough to really be excited for Fallen Kingdom yet. What I think of Avengers Infinity War, I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was... It did a pretty good job of taking what exists of the MCU and sort of melding it with what we got from the Infinity Gauntlet series from the comics. Not Infinity War, that was a different story than this. But Infinity Gauntlet, which worked out fairly well. I do think that the way they handled the ending was kind of nyeh, because obviously it's a snap moment and stuff, and you know that they're going to undo it, but because you know they're going to undo it, and because you know that so many of these characters that disappeared have upcoming films, are big money makers, there's no way that they're actually going to stay gone. So in essence, what you've got is sort of a bait and switch kind of thing, that people who don't understand Infinity Gauntlet or didn't read Infinity Gauntlet, who don't kind of get the business side of it, are like, oh my God, I can't believe they killed so-and-so. But you're like, yeah, but they're not going to stay dead. In fact, there's no movies being released in between now and, as far as I know, now and the next Avengers film that actually take place in the gap between the two Avengers films, because Ant-Man and the Wasp is either right before Infinity War or during it. Even what we got from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is during Infinity War for their latter episodes of the last season. Captain Marvel is set in, the 90s, right? So, they're not going to be gone for long. So a lot of the emotional impact was taken away. But I thought it was they managed an enormous cast of characters relatively effectively for what they were trying to do, which I thought was good. Though I still would have liked to have seen some of the Netflix characters, even peripherally, included in it. Coulson or Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., even if they're like in the background of a scene or something as a cameo, because it's all connected, sort of falls apart when you don't actually bother to make the connections in the reverse order, like the films influencing the shows, but the shows should have some connection to the films. And more than likely, we are back in loading hell, which happens about 1 out of every 2 streams, it seems like, where it just doesn't want to go back to the main menu. The only way to actually get out of it will be to close Battlefront as a program, which will kill the stream, which we were about to wrap up anyway, but still. Thank you, Battlefront, for being just as buggy as you always were. As for, do I think Kathleen Kennedy should go? Not necessarily. Not yet. I think there has to be more. There has to be more than fandom whining and poor marketing and so forth to get to a point where she should go. That said, I think that she is a lightning rod enough of a figure that if she were to go, that would probably be a good thing. Not necessarily because I disagree with a lot of the stuff that she's done. I mean, she's done some good things, she's done some dumb things. But because she is enough of a lightning rod that if you remove her, some of the criticism might back away. But then again, I expected Solo to sort of end some of the race baiting bullshit about Star Wars 2, right? Because here are the people whining about how diverse Star Wars has been, and now here's a Star Wars film where the majority of the main characters are white or male or both. And then it still becomes something that's heavily criticized from a diversity side of things because it's now you're not bitching about diversity, therefore you must be racist, which in some cases the comments were. Therefore we will attack you. And it's just, the toxicity there, it's a question of whether the toxicity is bred by the circumstances or the circumstances are just an excuse for toxicity. If it's an excuse, changing Kathleen Kennedy means nothing. The toxicity will still be there and simply find another excuse. If her leadership is a cause or a contributing factor to the toxicity, you might see the toxicity change, but I doubt it. But like I said, if you want to hear more about the fandom toxicity thoughts, really, I think important conceptually episodes of Star Wars Beyond the Films that we did for the last 2 of them at StarWarsReport.com. Just look up Star Wars Beyond the Films and look at the last 2. One is about toxic fandom, and we talk about it amongst me and Mark. A lot of interesting insights into it. And then the newest one is feedback about that episode that allows us to go into some other areas of it as well. Some pretty profound stuff. It's kind of weird thinking that we're going to follow that up by an episode talking about Solo, which is such a much lighter topic. JL, when is the next stream for Battlefront 2? Probably never. As I said early on, and it's why it's titled this way. I'm not drawn enough back into the game to really want to keep grinding or want to keep playing. I need to clear some stuff off the hard drive. This is probably going to be it. I'll put it on the other PS4, the one that was refurbished after it died, in the other room, but that room is not conducive to streaming. So chances are there will not be any more Battlefront livestream podcasts until or unless they add new story content into the game. And if they do, then I will probably jump back into it. But I will still be jumping on at least to try out new content often enough as it's released to still be able to discuss it on Cloud City Casino. But at this point, without new story DLC content, with the way that they're handling the prices of the new legendary skins and the kind of meh rollout that they've done of some of the newer stuff, there's games I'd much rather spend my time with than playing more Battlefront. So if there's going to be more streams in the near future, the streams will probably wind up being streams of PlayStation VR games, streams of Killing Floor, but I think I already deleted that because I finished the game finally. Streams of, I don't know, Preta, maybe do another Skyrim VR stream or something. Clone Wars DLC, again, unless it includes new story content, I don't really care. Because you're going to have to buy the new characters according to EA. You're going to have to buy, or DICE. You have to buy the new characters with credits, which means more effing grinding. And hey, here's some more legendary skins, more grinding. Or hey, get some more legendary skins and pay $20 in real cash to get a fucking character skin. No. No, 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 hell no. EA. It's in the exploitation of grinding and crystals and microtransactions. No, it's not. No. Unless you have something that's more within reach without the massive amount of grinding required or the massive amount of real-world money, again, the carrots are too far away to act as, the carrot and the stick, to act as the incentive to get me to continue playing. Give me more story content. Tell me what happens to Zay and Shriv and Dio when they head off in that Special Forces TIE Fighter to go to the Outer Rim and try to find some of their allies the way that members of Black Squadron who aren't in Last Jedi were doing. Give me a story about that like you left hanging back with the season of Last Jedi. I will be back. I will put it back on this PS4. I will stream the hell out of it to stream through the entire story just like I did with the original campaign and with the Resurrection DLC. But if they're handling Clone Wars DLC the way they handled Season of Solo, I'm out. I do not care enough. And there are other games I'd rather spend more time streaming, playing, or just doing something else. Because right now my time is also extremely limited. My wife is on leave, bed rest and leave, for the most part, until the baby is here. And then the baby will be here. I don't have the kind of time that I used to have, and this is a luxury that needs to be reserved for the games I'm actually enjoying playing. I love the conversations. I do not enjoy playing Battlefront at this point because it feels like an unending grind towards stuff that I don't really care enough about to grind towards that should be closer within reach. I mean, that's it. So let's see. Well, then never, because they don't have writers on. Oh, they don't have writers on payroll. That would probably be a thing then. So. Yeah, I don't expect any more Battlefront 2 streams. I do expect more streams when there is a new Star Wars game coming, and streams of other stuff, but not necessarily this. See, I do the Q&A stuff all the time frequently on YouTube. If you want to do it, so if you want a Q&A, and obviously we're still in loading hell, so it's not going to change. There's nothing I can do except stop the game, which stops the stream. Every now and then I put up sort of a call for questions on YouTube to do those, but I also, of course, that is a big feature of my Patreon, right? Patreon.com/Nathan P. Butler. Yeah. Patreon.com/Nathan P. Butler. I screwed up in the part that was my name. The top tier on my Patreon, which is only a $10 tier, as opposed to $10 but a $10 tier, is exclusive access to a Q&A video every single month that draws questions only from questions answered by people who are in that top tier on Patreon. So I had an ongoing conversation with one guy, for instance, Chris Locke, for months, where he would ask questions and give responses and go back and forth. So good stuff there. Let's see. They never understood that they could get more players in the campaign than it's the longevity through multiplayer, but interest through a campaign is sort of their thought process, and it's just they think of campaign as sort of a secondary thing to a game, which is also is part of the same issues with others. I mean, part of it, I haven't gone live except for this live stream since April, right? I mean, none of my YouTube content, my other YouTube content is live streaming. What is a social justice warrior? A social justice warrior is assumed to be, it's a term that is used, so historically, the idea of equality in terms of opportunity and rights was considered a social justice concept. It was a societal justice concept. Over time, as that sort of became more associated with the political left and the political right in the United States, you start to see, and this is me as a history teacher, you start to getting to a point where it slowly moves from being a focus on equality of opportunity and rights to equality of outcome and that sort of thing, to some degree. And then you start to load it up with things like victim groups, which are real, are legally defined, the protected classes, protected categories as it's defined, and different movements for sort of a combination of either equality or rights, either equality of opportunity, equality of outcome, a lot of different things, right? But it gets associated with the political left. And so someone who these days is really out espousing and pushing the view of the American political left a lot of times gets labeled as what's called a social justice warrior, SJW, someone who is actively campaigning, hence the warrior part, for social justice, which becomes a blanket term these days more for left-wing policy than for what it was originally historically meant to be. And because Star Wars and the powers that be of Star Wars, like Kathleen Kennedy, are actively pushing, for instance, more diversity in Star Wars, at least in front of the camera, not as much behind. And that is a prong of social justice in general, more diversity. You get that overlap, and those who push and support the diversity side of Star Wars that's going on now, a lot of times get labeled as social justice warrior, which also gives a convenient target for those who are anti-social justice warrior, because then it slaps the label on the other side. But historically, the meaning has sort of evolved. Like most terminology in American political and social life, it starts as one thing, it evolves, and in a modern context might mean something now that's different than, say, what it meant in like the 1960s, or what it might mean in a context in, say, Western Europe versus the United States, or what you might see in a similar concept. Japan doesn't call it the same thing, but Japan has sort of a social justice concept, but it's handled in a very different way. So a cultural context makes a difference. But that's where it's coming in. It's because it's mostly on like a diversity or pro-female type side, that those who are on the far right, more towards the alt-right side of things, look at as sort of being that if you're pro-woman, it's a zero-sum game. If you're pro-woman and pro-diversity, you must be anti-white male, which is not necessarily the case. Respect, diversity, representation is not a zero-sum game. It's not that if somebody gains, somebody else automatically has to lose for that gain to happen. That's not really the way that most societal things work. But it's easy to think in zero-sum game terms, because then you can point out winners and losers in every possible situation. Let's see. What do I think of UHD releases of La La Land? Haven't seen it. Guardians of the Galaxy 2, it was good, solid. Spider-Man Homecoming, good, solid. I mean, I think they were good releases. Personally, I still wish that they were also giving us the option of 3D, but at least I can import them from the UK. I just got Black Panther in a couple days ago. Why is it a thing in Star Wars anyway? Because Lucas believed in it. Because if you look at Star Wars at its, wow, there's a couple ways to take this. So looking at Star Wars as it originally was, Star Wars was not very diverse initially. Star Wars was white males, one black guy, and then, hey, look, here's another one. And making big deals about it. And a strong female lead character in Leia, but not a lot of female characters. But that, for its time, the fact that it was a strong female character was groundbreaking, because we're talking late 70s. This is an era of a very different Hollywood. But that is also a time in which, I would argue, most people defined themselves based on characteristics. Like, I can see myself in Star Wars because I'm like Luke, the farm boy with aspirations beyond my station. I'm like Han Solo. I feel like I'm the scoundrel with the heart of gold. You know, I'm this, I'm that. But it was as a character feature thing, right? Because that is sort of the way that in the 70s, as you're getting out of the turbulent 60s, you're heading towards the more baby boomer, me-ish focus 80s. That people tended to define themselves from a social standpoint, from a cultural standpoint in the U.S. Now, a lot of the divisions, whether realistic or not, forced on us by politics or not, that you see in the United States, tend to be on things like sexual orientation or race or gender and so on. And this idea of, well, if I'm going to see myself in Star Wars, it used to be by character traits. Now, if I'm going to see myself, we're going to try to let people see themselves in Star Wars by people who are of the same ethnicity, have the same accents, are of the same gender, whatever, and actually make it more literally diverse, not in terms of character type, but in terms of the things we would consider diversity in social science today, which would be, again, the gender, the race, the ethnicity, that kind of, and race and ethnicity not necessarily the same thing, right? Like you could have a race and break down to the category of Asian, but then within Asia you've got Chinese, Vietnamese, Korean, Japanese, and so on and so on and so on, right? I mean, technically even Afghanistan is considered Asian. And you go to the Middle East, you've got Arab, you've got Persian. Those are ethnicities within broader race. But essentially this idea that as times have changed and our definition of how we define ourselves as a society have changed, and our groups within society, to try to show someone themselves and give them someone to relate to that's like them within the films means more making it adhere to a modern version of diversity, which Lucas probably would have been fine with himself. I don't know if he would have been pushing it, but probably would have been fine with himself. But because that is a thing, and because that is, in the broader cultural sense, a big controversy at this point, a big push between left and right, you wind up with essentially something like that in Star Wars, a sort of life imitating art or art imitating life as that goes. And unfortunately, that's where the toxic fandom stuff comes in. We talk about that a lot again in those Star Wars Beyond the Films episodes from the last couple of months. All right, so I need to wrap this up here. I'm trying to see the clock, and it's covered up by a shoe because I have it sitting on the floor. Awesome. We'll wrap this up here so I can finally eat. But let's get any last questions here out of the way. Alterations of Star Wars movies are like the colorization of black and white movies. To some degree. It depends on what you're looking at. I would argue that the alteration of the Star Wars movies so when they remastered the audio for A New Hope in 85, digitally. When they did the cleanup for the THX remastering going into 93, that in most senses would be kind of like colorizing black and white movies because you're not changing the content. You are essentially just making for a better looking product. But once you start getting into 1997, 2004, 2011, and you start seeing the changes, that I think is where we get that analogy starts to fall apart, because now they're changing content, and in some cases changing the context of scenes and characters and so forth. Okay, definitely hope to see you again. I don't know what I'm going to do to another one of these. I may just go ahead and put up a call for questions on YouTube, so maybe we can do another Q&A sometime in the near future. But as we've sat here in loading hell for probably 10, 15 minutes just knocking out other questions, I appreciate you guys watching. Like I said, I'll be doing more streams, just probably not a Battlefront 2 unless there is new story content to speak of in the future, which seems very unlikely. I will continue to play from time to time. You might see me on so that I can talk about it for Cloud City Casino and intelligently know what I'm talking about. I actually have a package over here for Cloud City Casino because it's a package of stuff from Miniature Market that I need to open up and check out. I don't know if it's stuff for Imperial Assault or Legion or what the hell's in that box, but there's something new in the box. What's in the box? He says when it's her head. Bad reference to Seven. But yeah, so you can find Cloud City Casino, where we talk about stuff like Solo, and you can find Star Wars Beyond the Films, where recently we've been talking about fandom toxicity. Very important episodes, I think, culturally, at least within the podcasting community, which you can find both at StarWarsReport.com. You can find my Star Wars Timeline Gold, the most comprehensive Star Wars chronology available anywhere, at least until it ends in a couple of months, over at StarWarsFanWorks.com/timeline. You can find my book, A Saga on Home Video, a fan's guide to U.S. Star Wars home video releases, on Amazon and elsewhere now, though Amazon tends to be the fastest place to get it. And of course, my Patreon is patreon.com/Nathan P. Butler. If you want to get some exclusive audio commentaries for Clone Wars episodes, for Forces of Destiny, or do some of those monthly exclusive Q&As. So, thank you very much, guys, for watching. I really appreciate it. And I will hop out of here, and then feel free, interact, comments and stuff. But of course, catch me on Facebook, the author page, the Star Wars Beyond the Films page, the Star Wars Timeline Gold pages, all up on Facebook. Easy ways to get in touch with me, or on Twitter at SWFanWorks, but I don't tend to use that quite as often. But thank you very much. This may be the last episode of the Battlefront Livestream podcast. Until there's a Battlefront 3, we will have to see. I'll just let that question mark hang there. Thank you very much. Veda, GL, or GL, like George Lucas. JL, last one's here. Thank you very much, and I will catch you guys later, probably in another form.